Happy Saturday, Boalia Desmond here. Thank you for tuning in. So I titled my message today, Observations About Firsts. And so what brought this on? So I was talking to my mom today, and I was just thinking, my gosh, this is like our first Christmas without my dad. So I was thinking, I wonder how she's feeling. It's her, they were married for 50 years, and this will be her first Christmas without him. And usually right about now, they get super excited about, how he was going to have his non-alcoholic wine because he wasn't drinking. And just, they always got so excited about the amount of people that they blessed every year during Christmas time. It was just a highlight for them. And that they ate some, who knows what kind of a meal, and just, they were excited. But then I started thinking, my gosh, life is all about firsts, right? Let's observe these firsts. I started thinking about all the firsts. The Bible talks about a time that we are born and we take our first breath, and that's like our first. It starts our firsts, other than, when we're out here, other than when we're developing in the womb. So we take our first breath, and that's like sets everything off. And then you have the first cry. And then you as a parent, you are so excited when they sleep through the night, the first time they sleep through the night, and how incredible that is for a parent. And then, they're taking their first walk, they're crawling, they're standing up, the first time they fall. And I remember even just thinking about the first time that our kids their feet ever touched the grass, and the spook, the look on their faces was just so funny because it's so foreign. But these firsts always lead into something. So then they lose their first tooth. Well, first they get the first tooth, and then they lose their first tooth because they're getting older. And then, they have their first best friend, or their first fight with, whoever, the first time they get their feelings hurt. And there's so many firsts. And then you were thinking about the people, like today we had so many prayer requests. It just seemed like there were so many people needing intercession. We needed to intercede for a lot of people for prayer requests. And I was heartbroken by my friend who's dealing with COVID right now. So her and her husband both have it, and they're both in the hospital. And then she shared that her son turns 5 on Monday, and how they, this will be the first time that they won't be able to spend a birthday with him. And more than likely, they won't have Christmas with their children either. And that will be a first for them too. And I thought, gosh, I wonder how many other people are dealing with firsts. Are you dealing with a first? Is this year, other than, we're all dealing with a pandemic, but have you dealt with a first this year? Like, has something happened in your life too where it's the first year, or it's the first time? Share with us, like what is happening, like what has been like a memorable first for you as well. And sometimes, we dealing with a workplace, and they introduce a new policy, or they introduce a new procedure or new process, and sometimes we don't always embrace those, right? Because we're used to comfort, and then things get thrown off, and it's like, oh, why do we have to learn something new? Why do we have to go through whatever? And sometimes really it's necessary. The first is necessary for you to get to the second step sometimes, and so forth. What have you done new for the first time? And what's even more exciting is that it doesn't matter how long you live. You can have more firsts than somebody that lives till they're 90. If you're adventurous and you are a risk taker, you can have a ton of firsts. There can be so many things that you do that you just, you're embracing change, you embrace the adventures, and you just have a lot of firsts. So they're not all that bad. They're not all bad. But then when it's a season where it's your first time without a loved one, it's your first year after going through a divorce, those firsts can be hard. But what has been a first for you? Hey, Debbie, how are you? What has been a first for you? And how did you deal with it? Or how are you dealing with it? It can be, I think about, my son turning 18, and you think about the first things that they're doing. Some kids, it's the first time they go to the doctor by themselves, or the dentist appointment by themselves, because all of a sudden they're doing the firsts. Because I started thinking about, gosh, we have so many firsts in our lives. Like, it all begins somewhere. So if you've ever wanted to do something, if you have a dream that's inside of you, you know that there has to be a first, right? You have to take the first step. I remember doing my first live video and just completely freaking out. But I knew that in order for me to keep doing them, I had to have the first one out of the way. So what needs to be a first for you? And if 2021 you haven't written down your goals yet, or if you've never even written goals down, or never even really thought about, what you could do that you should be doing, make it a first. Make tomorrow the first day of something new. Like, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Don't get so comfortable that you don't embrace firsts. Because firsts are necessary if you want to get to the next step. There always has to be a starting point. So embrace it. It's not all bad. First phone call. The first time you stayed out all night. First time you embraced technology. My kids, remind me of how bad I am with technology, but that's okay. Always learning. So when was the last time you did something for the first time? Just think and observe about all the firsts that you've had in your life, and don't be afraid to take on new things, because it's worth it. So I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow.